Hello everyone, and Merry Christmas to you all. Tonight's video is probably one of the most important videos I'm going to make. I'm going to be listing some common descriptors of domestic abusers and the tactics they use in order to control their victims. This video is going to be particularly lengthy, but I advise you watch it all the way through to the end. I've compiled a sort of comprehensive list of as many abuse tactics as I could find in the past few short weeks. It's important to remember that abusers probably aren't going to exhibit every single one of these traits, but the more you know, the more prepared you'll be when you see abuse happening in your own life. So, what describes a typical abuser? Abusers might not have had examples of healthy relationships around them growing up. Perhaps they went through a traumatic divorce, or maybe they themselves were abused at a young age. As a result, abusers typically have unhealthy relationships with the people around them today. Abusers may choose to distance themselves from their families. They may bully the waitstaff in restaurants. They may backstab their friends, hit their girlfriends, etc. Abusers are typically self-righteous. In other words, if your feelings got hurt, it's your fault, not theirs. And if you have a problem with their behavior, they tell you that it's your problem. You may have a hard time getting an abuser to admit to their faults. Abusers may pressure you to do things you don't want to do, and this can range from demanding that you wear a longer skirt to keeping you from visiting with your male friends. Abusers can sometimes have poor communication skills. The abuser may have difficulty in expressing their emotions. Mine often didn't have an answer for when I asked him what was wrong. Abusers may have an extremely negative outlook on life. My own abuser couldn't see the positive in anything or anyone, except maybe his cat. Abusers may have unrealistic expectations. They may believe that they are supposed to come first in your life, and that you are to meet all their needs by putting your own needs on the back burner. Abusers may be hypersensitive. They can display extreme behavior such as jealousy or possessiveness, even when you haven't done anything to lose their trust. They may belittle, berate, or humiliate you in public in order to turn other people against you. They may threaten to abandon you. Abusers can display controlling behavior, such as not allowing you to access spending money, not allowing you to spend time the way you choose, not allowing you to hang out with certain friends. The abuser may monitor the victim's whereabouts or any contact she has with the outside world by snooping through her phone or her email. Abusers often have unhealthy outlets for their anger, such as kicking doors or throwing objects. Abusers may drive dangerously when the victim is in the car in order to intimidate them. They can court you very quickly into the relationship or into marriage. My own family member found herself married to an abuser within 6 months. Abusers may withhold affection for you until you comply with their demands. He may give you the cold shoulder, in other words, stonewalling, until you cave in. An abuser may belittle your aspirations to return to school or to accept a job, for example. An abuser may also refuse to share in housework or childcare if it prevents the victim from doing these things. And abusers are great at labeling. They're going to tell you that you're stupid, you're fat, you're ugly. He's going to tell you that you're never going to get anywhere in life, and that he's the best thing that's ever happened to you. My abuser, on the other hand, was much more subtle. He knew that if he used those harsh words, I wasn't going to put up with it. So he used different language by saying that I was selfish, I was closed-minded, I was ignorant, because those are not the typical words that people think of when they hear verbal abuse. And so they flew right under my red flag radar. That is why it is so important to learn the language of abuse and what it can sound like in its different forms. An abuser's comments towards you or your loved ones are going to be harsh, critical, or derogatory. He's going to do anything he can to lower your self-esteem and your self-respect because it heightens his control. His comments can be blatant, where he comes right out and says, your thoughts and opinions are stupid. Or he can be much more subtle and sow doubt into your own judgment capabilities by saying things like, well, I can't believe you're actually friends with that person, but whatever. In other words, he's trying to make you feel that your thoughts and opinions are wrong if they don't coincide with his own. He wants you to doubt yourself and question if you actually know what you're talking about. And over time, this constant criticism, even over trivial things, will slowly start to eat away at your confidence. An abuser may use examples from your own past, obscure though they may be, as proof that you're not to be trusted. He will constantly remind you of your mistakes in order to put you off balance and feel guilty. Abusers may possess a sort of Jekyll and Hyde personality, if you will. One minute they're the loving spouse you fell in love with, and the next they're just berating you constantly. There's going to be a negative proportion of good days to bad days, and it is all meant to throw you off balance, because the more you come to doubt yourself, the easier you are to control. And abusers are master manipulators. They excel at taking a small kernel of truth, even just a single comment you've made, and blowing it up into a major issue, all with the design of benefiting themselves. For example, if you check your phone during dinner just once, you may be accused of having an affair, even if you show the abuser that the message was harmless. The abuser is just trying to gather information with which to blast your reputation and make your self-respect plummet. He can label you as a cheater, and he can use that material to cheapen your worth. And again, this technique can be a lot more subtle as well. My abuser used this technique to isolate me from my friends by attacking my opinion of my friends. One day he heard me mention that I was annoyed at my friend for something silly, and he took that comment and he ran with it. Suddenly I would hear things like, "Why are you hanging out with that friend? She did this and this, so she's obviously not a very good friend. Maybe you shouldn't be hanging out with her so much." And really, this is a genius move, because not only is he sowing doubt where there is none, but he is making his abusive comments appear to be made in concern for my best interests. It's really a case of the wolf in the sheep's clothing, because of that one kernel of truth, his comments are just believable enough to fly below the red flag radar. And it became a pattern. If I shared something with my abuser, it would eventually be used against me. Now, a really important technique I need to mention is called gaslighting. This is where your abuser manipulates your perception of reality. This can be done by presenting false information designed to make the victim distrust their perceptions and judgments, and to even doubt reality. I plan on talking about this much more in depth in another video, because gaslighting can get pretty elaborate. But I'm going to give you two quick examples. The more subtle version, I guess, is example 1. Say, Andy tells Sarah that she promised she would make him dinner on Tuesday, when Sarah didn't actually promise that at all. Andy is providing false information to Sarah, causing her to doubt her memory, and this is called gaslighting. An example, of more physical abuse, I guess. Billy hides Jen's belongings around their shared apartment and then tells her that she is stupid for losing these belongings. This is physical gaslighting, where the abuser is withholding information from the victim that he himself moved the missing belongings. Gaslighting is a very serious topic, and it's dangerous in that most people don't recognize it in its subtler forms until they're neck deep in an abusive relationship. So again, I'll cover this more in depth later. Next point. The abuser is going to tell you how you think and feel. My abuser never talked about his own feelings. He never said, "I feel this way," or "I feel that way." Instead, he told me, "You don't love me. You don't put me first." And eventually I started to believe it, because knowing that that's how I felt was not how he felt. I don't know, something like that. Abusers deflect blame and responsibility. They consider themselves to be the victim. This is called blame shifting, or blaming the victim, and it usually extends far beyond that, to the point where the abuser blames not only the victim, but other people in his life or his circumstances for the problems that he is facing. To him, every problem has an external cause. For example, if you finally do confront your abuser about his behavior, he might say something like, "I only said that because you did this. Your behavior is a result of, whatever. My behavior is basically your fault. And that's not true. And I'm not saying that the victim may or may not have made a mistake, because we've all made mistakes, but I am saying that the abuser's behavior is not justified in any way because of it. You are not the cause of the abuse. Abusers also have a tendency to project their own behavior onto the victim, meaning that the abuser believes that they are not really abusing the victim, but that the victim is actually abusing the abuser. In some cases, the unfaithful abuser may accuse their faithful victim of cheating, for example. And abusers may display acts or threats of violence towards yourself, towards your loved ones, your pets, and your property in order to effect your compliance. Threats can be displayed in many forms, from verbal threats, physical threats of throwing or kicking objects in anger, to carrying around a loaded gun. It doesn't matter if the abuser actually throws the object or pulls the trigger. If the abuser makes like he intends to, it's a threat. Abusers also are very familiar with your weak points. They know all your soft spots and they know how to exploit them to get what they want. For example, if your partner knows that you have abandonment issues, he may threaten to leave you if you don't move in with him or have sex with him or do whatever it is he wants for you to do. He uses your weakness to his advantage. An emotional abuser doesn't have to use physical force in order to get what he wants. He will guilt his victim into it, and this is a form of coercion and therefore a form of abuse. They may directly belittle your aspirations. He might tell you that you shouldn't go back to school because you'll never get anywhere in life. Or he may be subtle and seem to encourage you, but then he'll do things to prevent your goals. He'll tell you that because of school, you never spend enough time with him anymore. Or he might refuse to pick up the slack around the house so that you can't do your homework. My own abuser made it impossible for me to do activities that I enjoyed doing, because then he would come home and say that we weren't spending enough time together, or that I was putting him at the bottom of my to-do list. The important thing to remember here is that abusers are never satisfied with your efforts. No matter how much effort you put into it, it's never going to be enough. Abusers rationalize, minimize, and trivialize. Abusers are going to justify their behavior with excuses, but don't be fooled. If the abuser lashes out and calls the victim stupid, for instance, the abuser will say that he only did it because he was tired or stressed out. He might go so far as to blame your actions for causing his outburst, blame shifting. The abuser thinks that because he can give a reason or a cause for his behavior is justified, but that's not true. Minimization, on the other hand, is when the abuser will try to make his abusive behaviors seem less significant than they really are. He may try to get you to believe that calling you stupid is not a big deal. He may perhaps tell you that other people do it, or that it is normal to be called stupid, when in reality this is a huge red flag. Trivialization is when the victim will come forward to confront the abuser with her concerns, and the abuser will diminish, dismiss, or otherwise make light of her concerns, saying things like, "You're overreacting, this isn't as big of a deal as you're making it out to be." Abusers also rewrite history. My own abuser would often tell me that something I remembered perfectly hadn't actually happened at all, or he would twist the story to recast himself in a more positive light, or recast myself in a more negative light. And there is no correcting an abuser. It's his way or the highway. Now, I also wanted to provide for everyone some particularly poignant passages that I've come across online concerning emotional abuse. Natalie P. posts that another emotional abuse tactic is to reject activities that she suggests and then do them with other people, letting her know that he is doing them with other people, establishing control and implying that she is not worthy of doing the activities with him, but other people are. For example, in my own relationship, I was often told that activities with his friends were more enjoyable than doing the same activities with me. Emotional abusers overcompensate for their self-hate with a warped kind of narcissism. They genuinely believe that you should know how they feel and that you should know what to do to make them happy, and that you should be willing to do those things without having to be asked or told to do so. In my own relationship, I was expected to know how to be a good girlfriend and to know what he needed from me without him telling me what he needed. Natalie P. goes on to say that they believe that they deserve to be treated better, to be put first, and to be given preferential treatment, and he will expect you to read his mind. He lives by the game of, if you really loved me, you'd know how I feel, and of course he will punish you for not being telepathic. If confronted with the unreasonable nature of this behavior, the abuser will blame his partner for his lack of communication. It will always be her fault that he couldn't tell her what he needed or wanted. He will project his behavior onto her and insist that he couldn't talk to her about what was bothering him because she was too intense or critical, angry, judgmental, or needy. And really, I mean, that's just the end of a very long list of emotional abuse tactics. There are plenty more out there that I probably haven't found yet. Maybe I'll make another video in the future. But for now, that's it, and everybody have a good night.